Good morning, everybody. Joel Spillman here, President over at ECA Marketing. I wanted to thank you guys all for attending today's webinar on an exciting and proven new client acquisition system. ECA has been chosen as one of the few FMOs that will be able to offer this client acquisition system to their producers. Today's presenter of the webinar is Don Quante, who's the author of both books, Don't Go Broke in a Nursing Home and Tax-Free Money for LTC. Using the system that Don will be discussing over the next 45 minutes, he's qualified for the MDRT top of the table for the last 16 years and was one of the speakers at the top of the table meeting that was held in Quebec, Canada last year. Don is the president and founder of Elder Care Financial, which is a retail financial company that caters to the needs of solving LTC solutions to aging parents and the children of aging parents. Don is going to talk about his system and how you can incorporate this system into your business. ECA has vetted this system, the $1 Million Advisor system, and believes that you should take a look at this system to see if it is a fit into growing your business. Without further ado, I want to introduce Don Quante. And Don, I just want to thank you so much for your time this morning, and thank you for the partnership with ECA. Just real quickly before I turn it over to you, Don, I wanted to let the other presenters know we have had 3 producers that have used this system so far, and the reason that we're rolling out today is because it has been successful for all 3 of those producers that tried it and helping them get in front of new clients. So that's why ECA is sponsoring and supporting this system. As most of our producers that are on the line today know, we like to try these systems before we roll them out to producers because, frankly, there's a lot of them out there that don't work, and it's just people trying to make some override and some commissions off of your business. But with that being said, this is not one of them. This is a system that works, and we're very excited for you to share this with our producers. So thanks again, Don.
Okay. Well, thank you, Joe. Holly, thanks for getting this all set up, and thank you for all of the advisors who are attending. When Joe and I had an opportunity to visit and talk about this, he was, I think, slightly skeptical. As he mentioned, a lot of these programs that you hear about as advisors, quite frankly, just don't work. This is one that got me to the top of the table 16 years in a row, the last 16 years in a row, and I'm close to having about half of that done year to date, and here we are on the whatever it is, the 10th day of or 11th day of January. This is the presentation that I used at the MDRT top of the table that was done in Quebec. We're going to spend around 40 minutes, and then we're going to take questions. So let's get started. During this presentation, I'm going to make what I'll call 3 bold promises. By the end of the next 40 minutes, you'll at least have a new understanding of financial products that provide tax-free money for long-term care. You're going to clearly see what this huge opportunity is that Joe was talking about and the products that will help you in your business. And probably the most exciting thing that the people at ECA have agreed to do is covered under number 3. You're going to leave this webinar with an opportunity to attend a 1-day boot camp that's reserved exclusively for ECA advisors, where we're going to provide you with, during an 8-hour,
how are you?
During an 8-hour session, we're going to show you a blueprint of how to effortlessly attract a regular stream of motivated and interested prospects. And actually, I'll show you how you can increase your annual income by at least $1 million. So here are the dates. We're going to ask you at the end of this to contact your ECA marketer for the registration links. Now, I know the April one is not open yet, and the February one is already filling up pretty quickly. The way this is going to work, if after you hear what you hear, you really like it, you're going to want to reach out to your marketer quickly because this will fill up quick. You'll arrive in St. Louis at our home office where we have our training facility. We'll have dinner from 6 to 7:30 at the Ameristar Spa Resort Casino. It's based right on the edge of the Missouri River. It's a beautiful, beautiful resort. We will be picking up the cost of the hotel room and your meals, so you're going to have to get there. And then on Thursday, February 9th, we'll start at 9 o'clock and we'll go until 4, and it will be, I promise you, career changing. So some of the things that you'll learn at this ECA only event is how to have 4 to 6 appointments daily if you'd like that many. And we regularly do that. The reason we want to do that in our office is so you can get a feel for what my retail practice looks like. You're going to be surprised at how small the space is that it actually takes to do this. We have a small office. It's not significant by size. You're going to learn also how to get the clients to drive past 20 or 30 other advisors and come see you about a topic that most people would rather avoid than discuss, this whole issue of long-term care. You will separate your business from the competition, and I'm going to show you how you dominate by using what I call swim upstream marketing. Not last but not least, but one of the most fun things you'll learn is how to attract large 401k rollovers. I call it almost by accident through something called legislative X-dating. We'll talk about a little-known law that very few advisors are talking about yet that allows you to triple an annuity in value on a tax-free basis for long-term care. And for those of you who sell life insurance, I'm going to give you a nugget. I'm going to show you how you can use $1 million of term insurance to create a $10,000 a month tax-free benefit to pay for care. We had one advisor last year do this, and he added, Joe, 120 additional life insurance sales to the mix for the year, which certainly changed his bottom line. So we're going to say buckle your seatbelts. This won't be like a drink out of a garden hose, but more like a fire hose. We're not expecting you to remember everything, but to be in a position where at the end of this 40-minute presentation, you're going to be able to say, you know what, it makes sense to take advantage of the offer ECA's making, and I'm going to go spend the day with Don in St. Louis. So let's start with what I call first things first. Why do clients do business with your company? If you think about that for just a second, you can come up with lots of reasons, but it's all noise at the end of the day. And then you have to ask the question, what differentiates you from your competition? And how do you compete with things like robo-advisors and the people that have these huge ad budgets out there? I mean, if you're an independent firm like ours, I mean, we're a population of only 200,000 people. How do you do that? How do you stand out? And what's the one thing that you have to have, if you think about it, for your business to be successful? So whether you operate as an insurance agency only under the heading of an RIA or both, you have to have this one thing, and we call it leads. So the answer is leads. It's a client acquisition system that puts you in front of people on a regular basis that are motivated and interested and want to talk to you worse than you want to talk to them. So imagine if your elevator speech could say something like, at XYZ company, we help our clients take advantage of little-known tax incentives that allow them to take a portion of their assets, increase it by as much as 5 times to pay for long-term care. And oh, by the way, we do that on a tax-free basis. So if you had an elevator speech like that, people might say, well, how do you do that? And it creates an opportunity for you to schedule an appointment. Put another way, by simply transferring $200,000 into a Pension Protection Act annuity, our clients then have $1.1 million tax-free that they can use to pay for home care, assisted living, and nursing home care. So by using proper language in your marketing message, if this is done right, as I mentioned earlier, you'll get qualified and motivated prospects to drive past everybody else and see you about a topic that most people would rather avoid than discuss. Number 2 is near and dear to my heart. Bulletproof your practice from lawsuits centering around long-term care. If anybody on the call is concerned about DOL, if you've had sleepless nights over DOL, you should, because the DOL is the plaintiff's attorney's best friend. There will be lawsuits like you can't imagine coming out of DOL, but I submit to you that there's an equally as challenging problem that we all on this phone call, on this webinar, excuse me, have, and that's this issue of long-term care. I can't see anybody's face, so I can't tell whether or not it's accurate or not, but when you think about this, can you honestly say that every single client file you have, for those of you who've been around a while, that could be 300, 400, it could be thousands of clients. Can you say that inside of the client file rests one of two things: a fully developed plan for how you're going to handle long-term care for that family? Number one, notice I didn't say long-term care insurance. So a plan, how you're going to handle long-term care if they get sick. And then the second thing, if you don't have that, a disclosure that the client signed that said, my advisor sat down with me on such and such date, and I agreed that I did not want to have the conversation about long-term care. So for those of you who take advantage of ECA's offer to come to St. Louis and spend a day with me, one of the things that you'll get in our $1 Million Advisor system is that disclosure. I had an advisor last year who generated almost $500,000 by simply going back and seeing every client. He did one of two things. He got them to sign the disclosure, or he created the full-blown long-term care plan for them. So last but not least, we're going to show you how, if you want to transform your practice, you can add an additional $1 million a year by simply making 1.5 asset-based long-term care sales each week. How do you do it? Well, you have to start with you have to have a killer marketing message. This is an example of one of the pieces that's in the system, the marketing system that you'll get by attending the event in St. Louis. You'll notice that there's 3 things in blue. It's compliant, there's killer ad copy, and it works. Now, let's start with compliant. It must be compliant. I will tell you that when Joe Spillman, Cal Kilgard, and I and my national marketing director met, that was the most important thing to the people at ECA, that this be compliant. Do you know right now that there are certain things you can say and certain things, excuse me, that you can't say? Every piece that's in our system will keep you out of hot water. Please do not create your own marketing material. There are states across the country, to name a few, New Hampshire, Delaware, and Minnesota, who are actively looking for ads that haven't been ran through a compliance process. This ad works like mad. Last week there was a small firm in the Inland Empire, which is central California. They had 71 people that attended between the 2 events. These can be done as luncheon, dinner events. We prefer to do them at 2 o'clock in the afternoon without meals. And we talk a lot about that at our event. How do you want to structure it in your marketplace? Depends. There's an example of the flyer. So in some marketplaces, the newspaper ad works the best. Others, it's a flyer. In every marketplace, highly targeted, direct mail with an uplink to Facebook. And we'll talk more about that at our event. Works really well. This will put 25 to 30 people in each event. Pretty much, there's only a couple of marketplaces that are difficult because they're oversaturated, but generally speaking, you'll get great results. This little card was one. This is a small postcard. You can send about 30% more of these because this is the smallest size postcard that's allowable in terms of font size from a compliance perspective, and this one worked like mad. This one happened to be an advisor who was having an event at a restaurant, so he did it as a luncheon event, and the only giveaway is a copy of the book. If people attend, it drives appointments a lot higher. So I mentioned earlier that I use this system to generate $1 million a year, but what I haven't told you guys yet is that that's yours truly. When I started at the young age of 21 in 1983, I had the same licenses then that I have today. I had the same credentials that I have today that I had then. I was fully licensed, but from 1983 till 2001, I had never earned over 200,000. I grew up in an 800 square foot house. We were not a wealthy family. The only guy that wore a suit coming into our neighborhood was the insurance guy. It was appealing. I thought, boy, that looks like a fun thing to do. So as early as I could get somebody to hire me was 21. That's when I started. And if you're like me and you haven't cracked the code yet on how to do this, you may just want to take a step back and go, you know what, I need to stop the nonsense. I call it Stop the Insanity Day. For me, it was July 1st of 2001. And what I said is what I'm going to do is I'm going to quit doing everything else. I'm going to quit trying to be all things to all people, and I'm going to focus on this issue of long-term care, and particularly not long-term care insurance. But how do we solve these problems without buying a traditional insurance policy? So I created a series of public workshops, radio, television, direct response ads, all of which are in our system called $1 Million Advisor that's being made available to you guys at ECA. And as a result, the numbers sort of speak for themselves. I'm not going to spend too much time on this, and I even feel funny showing it because I don't want it to come across as bragging, but if you come to St. Louis, you'll see that our little community, a little bit west of the city of St. Louis with a 200,000 population, was able to generate last year almost $1.8 million. And again, it's myself. I've got one other advisor that helps me with the cases that I just can't get to. So how do you do it? Well, you have to provide the solution to the baby boomers' two biggest concerns. And you have to do the opposite of what most of the insurance companies tell you. You have to have a unique selling proposition. We call it the USP that does this. It answers the question for the client, how can I guarantee that I will have income for the rest of my life? And how can I protect my assets without buying long-term care insurance? I know at ECA Marketing, because I know how good of a quality group ECA is, that they're already teaching you about how to guarantee income for the rest of a baby boomer's life through a lot of the strategies you guys are already using. What we're going to focus on today is how can I protect my assets without buying long-term care insurance. So to prove that this is a really, really big deal, I want to cite a study that was done by Ken Deitzwald. He is the expert on baby boomer trends. He's the guy that wrote the book Age Wave. Some of you may have read that book back in the 80s and 90s. And so Merrill Lynch asked Dr. Ken Deitzwald to find out what was keeping baby boomers up at night. And what they found was that the baby boomers were 3 times more concerned about their kids putting them in a nursing home, their ability to have income for life, and having a major illness than they even were dying. So at my presentation to the MDRT Top of the Table in Quebec, Canada last fall, I made sure that the life insurance guys in the room understood that, because if you're selling life insurance the way we did in the 80s and the 90s, you're going to have a rude awakening. You got to make sure you get the living benefits, particularly the long-term care built in. So that's telling, right? Well, to make it even crazier, we have 8,900 baby boomers turning 65 each and every day. The picture that you're seeing is the first baby boomer. Her name's Kathy Casey Kirchland. She turned 65 January 1st of 2011. And you know what? Yesterday, 8,900 baby boomers turned 65, and today that's going to happen, and tomorrow, and at 300 per hour, the opportunity is huge. We've all heard this. We've been beat over the head with baby boomers as the marketplace, but nobody ever stopped to think about the next part, which is this group controls the majority of the qualified money. There's 17 trillion that's available. And oh, by the way, I'm going to show you how to use qualified money to solve this issue of long-term care. So let's go back to you as an independent agent. Just like our firm here in west of St. Louis, you know, we're a small firm. And how do we compete in the marketplace? In 1970, there were 500 ads, financial ads, directed at the average baby boomer on a weekly basis. In 2011, that was 5,000 financial ads. People like the ones you're seeing on the screen here. You've seen them all, right? Top brokerage firms across the country. We even have a guy by the name of Ken Fisher who runs full-page ads. I hate annuities and you should too. There's a baby giving financial advice. So how does the small retail financial planning firm on the corner of any town that you live in compete? And I submit to you that people are pulling their hair out because all of these ads are saying the same thing. Here's what they're saying. We are all things to all people. So if your marketing message is that I can do everything, whether you choose to work with ECA on this or not, that's of course your decision. But I would recommend that you find something that you become an expert at. We would love for that to be long-term care because we've already written the playbook. We don't want people to be frustrated like the lady pulling her hair out or the lady with her head down. And how we did it was through something called swim upstream marketing. If everybody else is going one direction, you want to go the opposite. It's the reason why ECA, I think, embraced this. It's also true that we don't work with all of the IMOs out there. Like ECA selective, we're really very selective with who we're working with, and we're tickled pink to be a partner with ECA on this. So let's talk about swim upstream marketing. Let me start by having you look at this, and the bold print says, what do these people have in common? The people on the right are all popular baby boomers that everybody would know who they are. And so you say, well, what does that generation have in combination with the greatest generation? And it's really pretty simple. The boomers have parents. And you might say, well, why is that important? Well, it's important because when we're talking about long-term care, every insurance company out there will tell you that you need to market to people 45 to 65, and that is all wrong because 45 to 65-year-olds, as a general rule, have zero interest in this message. So there is a concept called small hinges swing big doors. If you don't write down anything else today as you're listening to me and watching this webinar, write this down. Small hinges swing big doors. The small hinge, to start with, one of them anyway, is that you need to be marketing to the right people. You don't want to market to people unless they fall in this range, age 69 to 82. At the presentation in St. Louis, I'll give you the other particulars on what you want to make sure. There's some other things in terms of geo and financial specific information that you want to use that people come to the boot camp get. So boomers age 65 plus have parents, right? Well, guess what? The average age that somebody goes into a nursing home is age 83. If you're 50, is there a likelihood that you already have a parent in a nursing home? Not real high, but if you're between the ages of 69 and 82, there's a real high chance. It may even be a spouse. So this creates an immediate crisis. It creates the ability for the families finally to have candid conversations about the two things that keep that the baby boomers never knew about from their parents, the greatest generation. And that is, how much money does mom and dad have? What did they make when we were growing up as kids? The 65-year-old or 70-year-old son of a 90-year-old person in a nursing home finds out that dad was a pretty good saver. He has 13 CDs with 13 different banks, right? Has no idea what to do. Why is that important? Most of these older people did not have long-term care. It creates immediate desire for these adult children. They become desperate for advice. And it's all of what I just described. The fact that their parent, somebody who's 85 or 90, went into a nursing home that creates the awareness. So if they see your properly crafted marketing message at about that time, guess what they're going to do? They're going to say, we don't want to put our kids through this. maybe I better go to that 2 o'clock presentation and learn what I can about this topic. To complicate things, elder care has been replaced by child care as the #1 workplace concern. And why is that important? It's a $37 billion problem. For those of you on the phone who have business clients that own small, medium, and large businesses, you want to reach out to them after you attend our boot camp about this. There is a way where you can, believe it or not, get referral streams started from business owners. Here's why. 84% of their employees admitted to making calls from work. A lot of them came in late, left early, and 62% of them asked for advice or help from their supervisor or coworker. I'm going to show you in St. Louis how to use the book Don't Go Broke in a Nursing Home, which can be customized with your picture and your bio on the back of it. I'm going to show you how to use that in this context and use it in a way where you will get unsolicited referrals. 30% of the boomers pay for the cost of their parents' care, which is why the boomers are beginning to sue advisors in record numbers. If you're an advisor, particularly if you hold a Series 65, we all know you have a fiduciary obligation to discuss the element of risk. That includes investment risk, mortality risk, the risk of dying, but morbidity is the one that us as a industry kind of overlook, and it's the one that can cause you the biggest amount of grief. I have an opportunity to go deep sea fishing. Being from St. Louis, we like to go down to the Florida Keys and fish for a variety of different big game fish. On one of those trips 5 years ago, this happened to be a billboard that we saw. Now, if you call that number, just so you know, it'll ring at my office. But it was a law firm that was running this billboard. And so when you call Dewey, Cheatham, and Howe, what they asked was, is mom in a nursing home? If so, how long? How's she paying for it? Does she have long-term care insurance? Does she have an advisor? And oh, by the way, did the advisor ever bring up long-term care? The baby boomers are going to say no. As a matter of fact, if mom would have been offered it, she would have taken it. And that gives these plaintiffs' attorney the ability to have to file these lawsuits. And you say, well, Don, how real is that? There's a lawsuit that was just settled in Utah for over $600,000. The advisor had recommended long-term care, but he didn't document it. The client said, we don't want to do that. All the money was gone in 5 years, and the son sues the advisor. And this was, this is ugly. I'm going to go a little bit faster now so I can stay on track and be respectful of your time today. But there was another lawsuit in New Jersey, and then this one's out on the West Coast, $3.5 million suit being brought against the advisor. So here's the way we see it. We say, you get lemons in life sometimes. Let's make it into lemonade. So let's turn the aging of the baby boomers into what we call this $1 million opportunity. The government's clearly not the answer. Every 68 seconds, somebody's diagnosed with early stage Alzheimer's. And in 2013, the U.S. spent $209 billion. Here's the last and probably the most important bullet. Average per person Medicaid for seniors with Alzheimer's is 19 times higher than the average per person Medicaid spending for all other seniors. So what does this tell you? This tells you that the government is not the answer. As a matter of fact, in some states like Illinois, which is a bordering state, if you win the lottery, they are so broke they give you an IOU if the lottery winning is over $6,000. And that has a lot to do with the entitlement program in Illinois. Now, everybody should know, set aside your political beliefs for just a second, but on the 20th of January, things will change in this country. And Donald Trump and the administration that he's assembled has already said that they are going to push a lot of these entitlement programs back to the states. So as we speak, elder law attorneys who used to use Medicaid strategies are running scared because they can see the writing is on the wall that the government and Medicaid and probably the VA system will no longer be the go-to answer for how to cover these issues of long-term care. I won't spend a lot of time on the Deficit Reduction Act, but this law changed when somebody wants to try to make themselves look poor. It changed the look back from 3 years to 5 years. During our class in St. Louis, we spend a fair amount of time on what Medicaid is, how it works, so you know how to combat it with the financial products that we use. And in most states, the maximum that you can keep is $2,000 to qualify for Medicaid. Again, we'll spend a little bit more time if you come to the event. To kind of make things worse, most baby boomers don't have pension checks, so they don't have a predictable income to rely on, which makes this issue of long-term care twice as bad. And this is the culprit. Most people never thought about this, but Ted Bennett was the guy who created the 401k, and all these companies are early adopters, people that are companies that got rid of their pension plan in favor of 401k. So you say, well, Don, what's that got to do with long-term care? It's a big deal because the majority of the baby boomers' money is in qualified money. In 1996, there were 37 million participants in 401ks and 1.5 trillion. And we now, as I mentioned earlier, have over 17 trillion. So it would not be unusual if you have this conversation for the your clients and prospects when you ask them, how do you plan on paying for long-term care, for them to say, well, I probably would use my IRA 401k because it's the biggest pot I have. Imagine if you had a better solution for them using the IRA. We're going to talk about that in just a minute. So I'm hoping that through the next 15 minutes or so, I'm going to change the way that you as an advisor see things when you see the words long-term care. Because most of us in the past, I know this was true of me, I heard long-term care assault and I would see this word here. And if you read it quickly, it's opportunity nowhere. However, if you look at things differently, and I'm going to prove that things aren't always as they appear by looking at this FedEx truck. And I'm going to ask you to take just a minute and look at it. Do you see anything unusual? Most people say no until you show them that the FedEx truck actually has a arrow built into their logo. Now, the side story behind that, for those who care about side stories, is that FedEx, the guy who created that, said, we want our logo to say subconsciously that all package delivery companies are behind us, which is the reason for the arrow. Now, you'll always see the FedEx truck in a different light. You will see it in a different light. I think you'll see long-term care in a different light as well. Most don't know that the government's actually created, the federal government's created tax incentives to encourage consumers to plan ahead for long-term care. Now when you see the FedEx truck, you're going to see the arrow, and now when you see the words long-term care, hopefully, particularly if you attend the event, you're going to say opportunity is now here in a big way. You see, your clients right now don't know what they don't know, and it's our job as agents or advisors to educate them, show them what can be done, show them how to pay for their long-term care in the most tax-efficient, cost-effective way. So we're going to look at some scenarios now, and the first one I'm going to start with is an IRA. So the person attended your workshop or a workshop of somebody else's, and it was on asset protection planning. Maybe it was about Medicaid. But what you learned after meeting with the client in your consultation was that he's 68, she's 63. If either of them gets sick, they want to remain at home as long as possible. So they want home care. She's frightened by the idea of going into a nursing home, and he brought up during your meeting that he's not a fan of traditional long-term care insurance because his friend owns a policy, and oh, by the way, he just got a 67% rate increase. By the way, anybody who's on the call, if you have traditional long-term care insurance clients, it's your obligation. You owe it to those clients to sit back down with them and show them the asset-based strategies. You would be surprised at how much additional business you'll get. So when you did your fact find, you learned that you know, they're retired and they're doing okay. I mean, they've got $3,400 a month of income, but you know, they're not saving much money. They have some money in stocks and bonds and checking, but look, their big asset is an IRA at Wells Fargo. Now, who on the phone call would love to capture 100% of that IRA rollover account? If we could see hands go up, Joe, I'm pretty sure every hand would be up right now. I'm going to show you a way that you can do that by talking about what's keeping them up at night first, which is this issue of long-term care. So here's what we're going to recommend. We're going to recommend that Tim chip off just a small piece of his IRA. Remember, he had $700,000, and here's another what we call small hinge that swings big doors statement. This is something worth writing down. You want to make sure that every client you sit down with, you ask them these two questions. Tim and Patty, I know you never probably thought about it before, but let me ask the question. If you got sick tomorrow, either one of you, have you given any thought to where you would want to receive your care? And you shut up. And most of them will say, 80% of the time, they'll say at home. And then you can say, you know, in the town we live in, that's going to cost between $8,000 to $10,000 a month for round-the-clock home care. In 2 short years, Tim, do you realize that you'd be spending $200,000 if either Patty or you got sick? Tim, have you given any thought, since you're technically self-insured, which asset you would liquidate first to pay for the care? And again, you shut up. More times than not, the baby boomers will say some of their IRA. In this example, that's what Tim said. So we're going to show him a better way to self-insure. How are we going to do that? We're going to transfer using a tax-free transfer, IRS tax-free transfer, $250,000 from his current IRA to a new IRA with a new custodian, where the IRA account will pay a minimum of 3% interest. It is 100% liquid, which solves the objection of what if I need my money back? It's 100% liquid. And that $250,000 deposit in this IRA will do 2 things. It will create an unlimited pool of long-term care for he and his wife. They'll each have $9,146 a month. They can choose to use it for home care, assisted, or skilled care. And oh, by the way, if they ever change their mind, 100% of the money is available. In addition, if they never need long-term care, when both Tim and Patty die, the kids will receive $457,000. The $250,000 they put in plus roughly another $200,000. Now, I will tell you, when it's presented properly, that this is amazingly easy, and the clients are so appreciative. I spent yesterday afternoon with an advisor in Atlanta, Georgia. We closed 3 cases for almost $900,000 of premium, and there will be another $1.6 million that will be moved over in AUM because he's a RIA business. And all that came from this conversation of long-term care. So let's talk about, this is all great for the client, but we're all advisors and we have families to feed on this phone call, right? So what's in it for us? That's the street level commission for that transaction. Now, I know there might be people that play different roles here, but that is what's referred to as usually the maximum street level commission. Not so bad, right? Now, what about the second guy? This guy comes to your office. He tells you that he's been turned down by traditional long-term care insurance companies several years ago. He doesn't want to waste your time, but you convince him to come in, and you ask him a couple of questions. If you get sick, where do you want to receive your care? He says at home. I'd never want to go to a nursing home, which, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, is what most people say. You then ask him a question. Well, where do you plan on, or how do you plan on paying for the care? Which asset would you liquidate first? And he tells you about this annuity that he bought way back when that he hasn't liked from the beginning. Now, I don't understand why people don't like annuities. They are one of the most valuable assets anybody could own, but nonetheless, a lot of seniors have been conditioned to not like annuities. So he says, I'd use that annuity. I never have liked it, but Don, I put $100,000 back in the 80s. It's worth $200,000. So what we suggest that he do is self-insure in a smarter way than he currently is. How do we do that? We introduced the Pension Protection Act to him, which, again, we'll go deep into this at the boot camp, but suffice to say that this is a law that allows you to take money out of cash value of insurance policies and existing non-qualified annuities, transfer them tax-free, and be able to create tax-free money for long-term care. So how does it work in Bob's case? Bob transfers his $200,000 annuity using the 1035 tax-free exchange rule, and when it arrives at the new insurance company, it's not $200,000 anymore for long-term care, but it's $1.1 million, and oh, by the way, it's tax-free. That's how serious the government is about this problem. They understand that the states are not going to be the answer. Medicaid and VA benefits will not be the answer. So they've given us incredible tax incentives, but yet when I ask most advisors, can you define in great detail what the Pension Protection Act is and how can it help your clients, they don't, generally speaking, know. If you come to our boot camp, you will learn that in detail. So in Bob's case, here's a guy that was not the healthiest fella. Remember, he's high blood pressure, diabetes. He's not the best shape. A 70-year-old guy is now going to get $8,300 a month to pay for home care, assisted, or skilled care. Let me stop just a minute and ask you this question. Do you think if you were able to do that you could clear the table and get him to move all of his assets to you, whether you're a registered investment advisory firm or you do fixed annuities? Doesn't matter. The fact is that they really appreciate you helping them. And you would be paid on that transaction $13,000. Now, last but not least, we're going to move to a case where the lady has CDs. And we ask her the question, if you got sick tomorrow, where would you want to get care? Again, she said at home. And we asked her, if you needed to pay for that care and it was going to be a couple $100,000, which asset would you liquidate first? She said checking CDs, savings. So again, we comply with what the client said. We transfer $250 into an asset-based life/long-term care, which, by the way, most of what I've described to you up to this point has 4 knockout health questions and a simple phone interview. We're not talking about fully underwritten products here. In Mary's case, by transferring $250, her family's going to get one of two things. She's going to receive $500,000 back tax-free to pay for care, $10,000 a month. She can pay home care, assisted skilled care, changes her mind, it's all back. Or if she never needs the long-term care when she dies, the family gets a tax-free death benefit of $507,000. You now have become her new trusted advisor and have a chance to sweep the table for the rest of the assets under management. And because this is life-based, not annuity-based, it pays a slightly higher commission at 8%. That works out to be $20,000. So what you guys can see by us going through this is it doesn't take too many sales. I mean, we're not super people here. It's just a matter of messaging and doing it right. Now, you could do a couple of things. You could go out based on this webinar and you could say, I'm going to do this on my own, or take advantage of what Joe and Kyle and Holly in the group there, your marketers, have offered, and come to one of the boot camps. Again, February is open right now. We have in our training center room for 20 people. We could host, like we last month, we could have had 100 or so people attend, but we choose to keep these small because what we find is that the people who are interested will raise their hands first, and you want to remember that money is attracted to speed. speed attracts money. So those people who can make a decision on this call and go, yeah, you know, it's worth spending a day out of my life to learn this, will be the first people in the room, and that's the way it should be. So we got room for 20. I'm going to encourage you, as soon as we're done with questions and answers, be one of those first 20 people to contact your marketer and get signed up. And then Holly, I think based on that, we'll open up the April event. So, with that in mind, Holly, it's time for us to take questions, and hopefully there are a few.
There are a few questions already. So the first one that I have is, can you offer any of those products in the state of New York?
Now, Holly, you asked me earlier, are there any questions we should stay away from? And that's still one we should stay away from. Yeah, so New York is a particularly difficult place to do business with these products, but there are a couple options. That would be something that you would want to have you would want to talk to your marketer and arrange a phone call between your marketer and my team here, and we'll share with you then what exactly can be done, and you can then decide if it's worth taking a day and coming to St. Louis.
Another question that I have is, how do you get money out of a qualified account without paying the tax to fund these policies?
Yeah, so that's a wonderful question, and that creates the opportunity for the advisor to say something like this to their client. You know, Mr. Prospect, we know things most firms don't know. And so after you come through the training, you'll learn this, but I'll share that with you now. How it works is the current IRA is transferred to a new IRA custodian. That is an IRA annuity account that's 100% liquid, that credits interest at a rate of minimum 3%. One time each year, they take an amount equivalent to the RMD amount, and they sweep it over into the cash value of either a single life or second to die chassis. It's a patented product. There's only one carrier out there that can offer this because it's patented. So what happens is the trustee-to-trustee transfer amount, in my example, I think it was $250,000, is not taxed. It's just transferred as if it were a regular transfer. What is taxed is the distribution from that account over into the insurance policy.
Another question that I have is, do you have to have a securities license?
The answer is no, you do not have to have a securities license. And as a matter of fact, Joe and I haven't had a chance to talk about this, but I know Tim Savoda, who's my soon-to-be National Marketing Director, and Mikal Kilgard have talked about this. The products that you've just seen are all going to be favorable for you to understand after April if the DOL goes into effect, because these will all fall under the 8424 PE exemption. So it is a good thing all around. Yeah, these are all fixed products. You don't have to have a securities license, and your business will be bulletproof if you were using this system.
And that actually brings me into a next question. Are you talking about products similar to Lincoln MoneyGuard?
The answer is not really, because Lincoln MoneyGuard is under a universal life chassis. This is under a whole life chassis. And under the example that I used with Bob, that is a annuity-based product. There's simply 4 health questions. There are knockout questions. We can get no on those. We have a phone interview with the nurse at the insurance company, and we have an answer in 72 hours. So right now, Lincoln Lincoln does not have a product that can match up with the Pension Protection Act style annuity. And I didn't say this earlier, but it's worth mentioning. In all of these cases, we can do single life or dual lives. So in the example of the annuity example I used, if Bob would have been married let's say to Sue, even though it was his annuity, when it showed up at the new new annuity company, it would have the ability for us to add her as a second insured. So the 1.1 million that I discussed could be available for both husband and wife, even though it was his annuity at the first place.
And that brings me to another question. They're flowing pretty nicely here, is what if any of your prospects don't qualify for life insurance?
Yeah, so this is ratings class preferred through table 6 and sometimes table 8, depending on what the illness is. So what we found is it's rare that people don't qualify for this, even if they've been turned down for life insurance, or even if they've been turned down for traditional long-term care. Now, one of the things that we do, and your marketers who are on this call have, I think, appreciated this, is we have a 4-hour preliminary underwriting decision type process where we can get an answer back to you on if it's doable or not.
Sounds good. And another question is, are these products only available for RIAs or 401ks to be rolled over into?
Yeah, the answer is no. What I demonstrated today was you asked the client 2 questions. Excuse me. If you got sick, where do you want your care at? And since you don't have a plan, how do you plan on paying for this? Which asset would you liquidate first? If the client says CDs, then you can use CDs. If they say annuity, then we're going to use the annuities that conform with the Pension Protection Act because of the tax-favored payout. I mean, remember, you put 200 in, you get 1.1 million, and it's all tax-free. Last but not least, if the client has 401k or IRA money, that's when we would use the products that are designed for that. So we have a product for cash, savings, checking, stocks, bonds. We have a separate product with different laws for annuities, and a third and last product for IRA or qualified money.
And are there any problems that we run into with surrender charges?
Yeah, wonderful question. And so as a general rule, because of the way suitability is such a hot topic now, the transaction is considered suitable even in cases where there's a surrender charge involved. When we write a cover letter, and in addition, we've checked the box that said the purpose of this transaction is to provide long-term care. So as an example, if somebody had a $200,000 annuity and there was a 5% surrender charge still left, we would have to have a cover letter, but the insurance company would accept that as long as the box on the suitability form was checked. The purpose of this is for long-term care. Now, granted, if the annuity was wrote last year and you're transferring it today, you know, they're not going to look favorably on that, but in cases where it makes sense, you know, that's not a problem.
Sounds good. And now some questions in regards to the boot camp coming up. Will we have to fill the February class for the April class to be available?
Yeah, so that's really a question for Joe if he's still on the call, or Holly for you guys. I know, if I'm not mistaken, there were already quite a few people that had signed up for February, so that, you know, we expect that both of them are going to be sold out today. This is what's happened when we've done this before. Again, we have limited partners, but I can speak from experience. If you're on this call and you're thinking, boy, I ought to wait till April, don't do that. Take the February. We only have, there were 3 people, I think there are 4 already scheduled, so you have out of the 20, you had 16 seats available, and then you got whatever you guys still have left out of April.
And that's exactly what we'll be doing. We'll be hosting both, so the February and the April one, and they both will be filling up.
Yes.
Another question is, are there limitations on the number of areas or agents in a certain area?
Yeah, so that's a wonderful question. Yeah, based on when if you have signed up with ECA for this program, you come to the boot camp. That means you will have already talked to your marketer about this. But as a general rule, you will be doing asset-based long-term care, and so I think, if I'm not mistaken, some of the annuity products through you guys. And then once we put somebody into a marketplace, they get a licensing agreement that covers a 30-mile radius of around where they live at. It is our expectation that you will not have multiple people in that same 30-mile radius. In places like California, you could literally have, because how big Los Angeles is, you could have 4 or 5 advisors there. But in a place like Topeka, Kansas, I can tell you that there's only going to be 1 or maybe 2 advisors there. These are not exclusive agreements. On the other hand, you guys already have a producer, I won't mention his name, who's done such a fabulous job that we have, when another advisor pops up that's in that area, we say, no, we can't work with them because we don't want to upset the apple cart where we're at. So this is another example of where money's attracted to speed. Kind of the first people in are going to have the best shot at protected territories.
Sounds good. And a question as well that I ran into is probably going to be one of our last ones here is, does an agent have to have clients or prospects in mind before attending the training?
No, because what happens is, this is going to be beneficial to 2 groups of advisors. Those advisors who are listening in that have a big book of business already, and you haven't sat down with your clients and really ever had these conversations, you're going to want to do it because it would easily generate another $1 million of revenue for you this year. But a bigger reason is that it's going to protect you from future liability and lawsuits. And I will tell you that those are coming like you can't imagine. The second group are going to be people who have a practice already. They're not brand new to our industry, but are looking for a way to fill rooms when maybe they already do seminars, but they haven't been having as good of success. And what will happen while you're there is we'll go through the training, and you'll have a legal pad in front of you, and you'll be making notes of people that you think of that fit these different strategies. And I suspect by the time they leave the boot camp, they'll probably have 3 or 4 people in mind, but that's not required to come.
And I believe, how much do you ever want to take a couple more questions?
Yeah,
John?
sure, we can.
Okay. Sounds good. I do have a question in regards to cost for the program. So if we want to review the boot camp and what is covered there, and then also if they want to join the program after that.
Okay, so here's the cost for the boot camp is whatever it cost you in travel expenses to get here. Between Kyle and Joe and the people at ECA and our firm, ECA's been really gracious to say, hey Don, let's host these people, let's put them up at a nice hotel. It's not going to cost you a penny for your hotel room. It's also not going to cost you anything for meals while you're here. We'll feed you really well. And there's no cost to attend. If you decide that you are going to move forward and sign a marketing, what we call a licensing agreement with us, so you have access to the stuff that's at milliondolaradvisor.com, our coaching, our training, and then, of course, everything that ECA is doing for you. It's not money that gets you that. It's you moving contracts and doing business with the people at ECA. So at the end of the day, there's no cost, and it doesn't cost anything to sign up. Now, the only offer that will be made at that event is I have a Amazon best-selling book called Don't Go Broke in a Nursing Home. We figured out a way to customize the back cover of that book and put the agent's picture, bio, name, address, and phone number on it. So it becomes the ultimate calling card. If they decide they want to customize the back of the book Don't Go Broke in a Nursing Home and order 25 the first 25 copies of the book, that cost is $349. So if you're on this line and you're thinking, oh boy, I've been to these things before, and I'm going to get there and then they're going to want to charge me $10,000 for a system, that is not what this is. You don't have to even buy books if you don't want to. What we find is almost every advisor does, because when they see the book, they say, wow, this is great. I can put my picture and everything on the back. Yeah. So, well, good question.
Sounds good. Well, there are a few questions as well, but we're not going to be able to get to them all, Don. So I will have the marketers reach out to those agents who still have outstanding questions, so then that way we can have the call wrapped up.
Sounds good. Well,
hey Don, Joe Spillman here. Thanks again so much for this presentation. I had just a couple comments that I want, since we have over 100 producers here on the line, to just make here and let them think about. You know, this type of sales is different than what a traditional annuity sale is, and we've seen a lot of success with a lot of producers that go back to their block of business, specifically if they sold clients products 5+ years ago that were multi-guarantee annuities. And those clients are unhappy with what renewal rates are available for them out there in the world today. So we've had numerous advisors that, instead of going back out and trying to offer their client a 2.75 guaranteed rate for 5 more years, to go out there and offer them a solution where they get some guaranteed LTC coverage that will, you know, double, triple, or even quadruple their amount of asset that would be available for them for long-term care. And the real key to that sale that we've seen success on is that the clients, of course, that buy these short-term annuities, they don't like to lock their money up forever. And the return of premium rider feature on that product makes it really a simple sale for certain clients. Not everyone, of course, buys it, because certain clients just want to stick with their guaranteed rate. But we've seen numerous producers that jump on board with this idea, and they're able to just flip a couple of cases over to this, give their clients some wonderful long-term care protection, and give themselves a new commission on a product that they kind of thought was just going to sit there forever, getting the guaranteed 3% interest rate that old contract was offering.
Yeah.
Also, I wanted to make a comment. Everyone that signs up to come to the boot camp, ECA will pick up the cost of sending each of them a book before they go. That way they get an opportunity to read through the material in the book. I'll tell you, I read it cover to cover twice. It's a really great put-together book for those producers to take a look at.
Okay, awesome. Well, Joe, thanks for the opportunity, and we're looking forward to seeing everybody in February and April as well.
Thanks again so much for your time, Don. Thanks again so much for all you producers that took time out of your day to be on the webinar with us, and hopefully we'll see you in Missouri.